And welcome to Consulting Talk Live. My name is Russell Pearson, and this show is for consultants who want to forge a consulting business that is successful. And what does that mean? Well, your idea of success is what matters here. So it's about identifying what is the sort of lifestyle you want to live, what is the sort of business that you want to actually run, what income does that provide for you, and how much do you work? And so for a lot of people that we work with inside the Forge Business Program and the Guild, that is the select consulting model, which is a model where you're working less than 4 days a week, earning over $600,000, pretty much selecting the sort of clients that you would work with. So fantastic. Oh, there's people on the call already. Excellent. So good to have you here. This is a place where you can ask your questions, and you can do that by going to consultingquestions.com and filling in your details there. We have had people do that, which is amazing. And I'm going to take one of those questions today. Our question comes from Deanne from, hopefully I've pronounced that right. I reckon I probably haven't, from the UK, who writes quite a significant message here, but I'll paraphrase it for the question in the middle there. But hello from the UK. I have 120 subscribers to my new consulting newsletter for my startup, focused on helping businesses enable data and AI to the growth strategy so they can get their next financial milestone, which is amazing. He says, she, I'm not 100% sure on that actually. I loved your video in creating engaging content. So that was from the previous video that we did. This is something we're experiencing every month. How do I grow my subscriber base? Focusing on SME leaders. Then he talks about a few things that you could do. And so really the question today is that one. So we've got, let me bring it up on screen. I have paraphrased the hell out of it, but it's basically, how do I grow the subscriber base for my newsletter? That is the focus of today's conversation. So let's get into it. Now, there are a whole bunch of ways that you can do that, but I want to sort of preface it with a couple of things first. Number one, I think we're talking about a newsletter that is an email newsletter. There's many different types of newsletters. You've got you've got email newsletters, but you can also do physical newsletters. This is where the world of newsletters started. And up until a few years ago, we did a physical newsletter, which was actually one of the most popular things that we did. We only did it to our current client base. But then there's another one that people probably haven't realized just yet that they can do, which is the LinkedIn newsletter. And while I'm going to give you the specific steps to grow your subscriber base in any of those different positions, I just want to touch on the LinkedIn newsletter because it's something a lot of people don't realize that they can do. By creating a new article on your LinkedIn profile, you have the option to start a newsletter. Now, why would you start a newsletter? Because it seems like a lot of extra work. Why would you do it on someone's owned media rather than your own? In other words, why would you do it on someone else's channel rather than your own email system? Well, the main reason is that LinkedIn has done something unique in the way they do these newsletters, which is to actually send it out in the first instance to every single one of the people who are connected to you, which means that they get a notification on the first newsletter that goes out that says, this is now available. Would you like access to it? And for a lot of people, they just click yes. I mean, ideally, you want people to know what they're clicking yes to, but they'll click yes, and you can get hundreds of subscribers just on the first article. Now, you can use that strategy to actually work into your larger lead generation strategy and actually bring people through a funnel of sorts to engage with you. Remembering that the goal of any consulting funnel is to get people into a conversation because your point of sale is a conversation. All right. So LinkedIn newsletter, very useful tool if you are not already using it. So the question is then, what are the other ways to actually get people to subscribe for either your print or your email newsletter? Well, the main way is to ask people. Now, I was speaking to my fiance about this actually, and she said, well, it's all very good and well for you to say that simplistically, like, yeah, you just ask people, but like, how do you go about doing that? What are the steps that you take? And so let me just reframe some of that. So instead of just say ask people, which you can absolutely just do. You can literally just walk up to people and ask them, would you like my newsletter? Now, the majority of people are not going to want the newsletter just based on that. So what are the steps that you can add to it? Well, first is inviting people. So just changing the frame of am I asking people or am I inviting people? So inviting people to your newsletter becomes a really nice change in the way that you think about it. And there are multiple steps that you can do just in the normal course of your business that I'm going to highlight for you in just a moment. But can you invite people to it? And reframing what it is, because for a lot of people, a new newsletter or a new thing that they have to engage with is additional work in their already busy life. So I like to change the framing from would they like a thing to would they like access? All right. So that gives them options. So it opens up the options that they can have, but doesn't force them to have to do anything with those options. So would they like access? Yes, I would like access. All right. Well, what's your email address? I'll give you access. Yeah. So that's a really easy way to do it. And you can do one person at a time is actually a really successful way to do it. A colleague of mine once built a group in exactly the same strategy by only speaking to people in networking functions. And she built a 7,000 person group by following this same strategy. Now, you can do the same strategy on social media or other online networking functions, but you need some form of format to that, like a process. And so here is the process. We connect with people. We qualify that the thing that we've got for them is relevant. In other words, if I'm just speaking to, I don't know, the local baker at the baker's shop, right? they're unless they're the business owner, and a small business newsletter is not going to be relevant to them if they're just the person working on the cashier, right? So, is the person qualified for this to be valuable? So, we connect with people, and that can be as simple as a handshake. That can be a connection on a LinkedIn profile. That can be meeting them at an event. Connection allows us to start talking, to start having a conversation. And so we connect with them. We qualify to see that they are actually in the world where the thing that we've got is going to be valuable. And then we invite them to a step. So it's connect, qualify, invite. Now, that is the same whether you're actually in person with at a networking function, let's say Chamber of Commerce or whatever it might be. We connect, qualify, and invite. We connect. If the person in front of us is not the right person to be offering the newsletter to, then we don't invite them to the newsletter. But if it is, then we would. Sidebar, I years ago set up a blog about design. And I'm actually quite obsessed with the design. I have a design background and I really like all aspects of it. So I thought, I'm going to make this about all design. And it didn't get a lot of traction. Then one day it sort of blew up. And I'm like, what is it that's actually causing this blog to go viral? And I found out that it was this design of a house that was in the shape of a toilet, right, that had just gone viral. And all these people were pouring into my blog and they were commenting on it and getting engaged in it, but none of them were qualified for the work that I wanted at the time, which is to work with people on the design and branding of their business. So completely irrelevant people. And so there's no point in building a subscriber base of irrelevant individuals. We want to build a subscriber base of qualified people, right? They don't have to be prospects yet. They don't even have to be leads yet, but they need to be qualified, aka they could use what we've got. Yeah. So focusing in on the people who could use what we've got, that means it's less about numbers and it's actually about quality. And so you can have these really big lists that are completely unqualified, and you put an offer into that, and it's like putting a drop, it's salting a bucket of water, salting the ocean. It's not going to actually cause any change. So ideally, we want to have the majority of the people on our list qualified that they could use what we've got, even if they're not ready, right? Because there are different times for different people. So connect, qualify, invite is the process. So we can do that on social media. We can connect with someone in a LinkedIn fashion. Let's say that we connected with them on a profile. We send a connection, then we start talking to them in the DMs. We would qualify them, and then we would invite them to a next step. One of the things I say about direct messages, we call it chat, yeah, is that you want to avoid sending blocks of text. Yeah, there's a lot of consultants out there that look at the work that we do and they go, well, I think we could make it more efficient. And in the course of making it more efficient, they drop the effectiveness through the floor. And so instead of sending a message to connect with people, then asking them a simple question to actually see if they're qualified for the thing that we've got, and then inviting them to the thing that we've got. So 3 messages. They'll put it all into one message in a big block of text and expect it to work the same. It doesn't. Yeah. So um, one of the rules of thumb that we've got is chat like a 14-year-old schoolgirl. I made that rule up when my daughter was 14, which is the idea of just send very small, simple messages that, like, every time you got a thought, send a message, send a message, send a message. So, hey, John, send. I saw you were in this industry, send. Was interested to ask you this question, send, right? So 1, 2, 3 different messages, far more effective, far more conversational. And so if you can imagine yourself at a networking function, there is a person who just stands in front of a group of people and just talks about themselves without letting other people get involved. That's what happens when you send a wall of text via social media, is that you're basically talking over the top of everybody. You want to allow people to engage with you. There's a back and forth. There's a bit of a building of rapport through the process of having a conversation. And small talk is a bit of an art, right? So that's part of the process. So we connect with them, we qualify that the thing that we've got is going to be valuable, and then we invite them to a next step. So we can do that 100% with all the newsletters, and we can build it up that way. So that's one way. Excuse me. Now, it's not highly leveraged because you're engaged in doing that action every single time. And so what is another way that you can actually engage more subscribers to your newsletter without having to do work every time? Well, there's 2 massive ways that you can do that. Number one is you put your newsletter everywhere. So on all your profiles, you put a link, you enable people to sign up themselves through a form or whatever it might be. But if you're going to do that, the key with a newsletter is it has to be valuable. And it's valuable from the outside, not the inside. So a lot of people will work really hard on their product, their service, their newsletter content, yeah, with the idea that if it's amazing, people will share it, and they will, right? So that one method is to make it the most amazing newsletter ever. But what that's actually going to do more than actually have people tell everybody about your newsletter is it's going to make the people who are reading it sticky. They'll stick around, which means they won't churn out of your list. Yeah, so you want to avoid churn by actually having a newsletter that's reasonably good. But the mistake people make is they believe by making the newsletter good that people outside that haven't read the newsletter will actually know that it's good. And it's far rarer that people will share about what's going on inside your programs or your resources or your service or your newsletter versus you actually just putting a valuable label on the can that is the newsletter. So labeling your newsletter in a way that it becomes ultimately very valuable for the person to engage with. So they go, I want that thing. So why is it valuable for the people, and making sure that that is very clear from the outset. And the trick is to make it in a way that it's almost a sentence or two, so that you are not expecting people to read a whole lot of content before they actually even engage in the newsletter, which is reading a lot more content. People are busier now than they've ever been, right? They're bombarded with information and stimulus from every different corner. So we need to, I think, we don't need to do anything, but more than ever, value is more about speed and ease of use than it even is about outcome. Outcome's very important. We want to help people get to where they want to go. But people are really resistant against the outcome if it feels like it's going to be hard. They're really resistant about the outcome if they feel like it's going to take a long time. And on one side, that's completely ridiculous. Right? If you want to do something that's hard or big, then you're going to have to put in the effort and you're going to have to put in the commitment and the time. But there is so much overwhelm in people's life now that if you want to help people take that step, make it easy. Make it easy to take the step. And there's a really nice analogy on this, which is people get sick, and often they can't get well until, like, they reduce pain, for instance. So in some scenarios, they've got so much pain, so much tightness and anxiety in their body that they're actually making it harder for their body to heal. And so what doctors realized is that by giving people simple pain management, that they enabled them to get into a place that they were ready to be healed. And it's the same for a lot of the work that we do as consultants for clients, is that people can be so overwhelmed or so frustrated or so not ready to grow their business, not ready to take the step that we want to help them take, that we need to give them a little aspirin first, something to make it easier for them to have that conversation. A newsletter is definitely a way to do that, though it does take more time to, now they have to read a newsletter on top of everything. So obviously making it the best newsletter, but then making it feel very easy in the start. So what is the value proposition that you're creating for those people who you want to bring into the newsletter? Well, it needs to be one that doesn't just talk to, you can make more money, you can get bigger, more effort. People are wanting less these days rather than more. So it's about refinement rather than mass. Yeah. So, and at the end of the day, that comes back to the newsletter as well. So we can put our link everywhere. It needs to be attractive. I think a visual way of putting a newsletter out there is a good one. And so creating a cover for it, giving it some substance, giving it some weight in that it looks like a physical newsletter or even a book, so that people feel like they're opening the pages to get something. The other one is funnels. So you've got multiple different types of funnels. You've got physical funnels, which just means that we have a process that we move people through from stranger to client. There are steps that you move through. You go stranger, suspect. We suspect that they could use what we've got. From suspect, we move to lead. We've now got contact details so we can continue to communicate with them. That's where the newsletter sits. Then we move to prospect, which is they've got something specific to talk about. All right, we've got a project or a concept or a thing that we're working on together. We then move them to conversation. Yeah, we're having a conversation about how is now the right time? Is there a priority to make that happen? Where ideally, in some cases, we'll go to customer rather than client. So customer is the idea of just doing a small piece of work with someone rather than them committing to maybe a retainer or a big project. They'll do us to a small piece. So that's a customer. A client is where you dedicate now time to them. And so then they become a client and there's like a reciprocal relationship. So these are the stages we move people through, and a newsletter can help that happen, right? It primes people to be ready to say yes to you because they've moved through a consideration process with you. So that's a funnel without digitizing it. Now we can move it into a digital funnel place, which is we might have a lead magnet. That could be a resource or an event or something that we put on that, again, is easy for people to say yes to. They move into our world. They're now a lead. We have contact details for them. Maybe we introduce the newsletter at that point. There's two ways of doing a newsletter in that sense. You can either just give them newsletter because now it's reasonable that they can expect your communication. And depending on what country you're in, that is legal or not legal, because there's different rules in different countries. But we have them opt into that newsletter, or we can actually make it a harder step because we want to ultimately qualify that this is going to be something that they want. So we'll ask them a question. Maybe we ask in that digital funnel via an email, would they like access to the newsletter? Yes, they would. Excellent. We just put them in again. So it's a bit of a manual step. But we can also show them the step through that, send them an email. Would they like access? Click the link. They go and then do it while you're asleep. Yep. So we're moving people through a digital process, but we have to have something that's a catalyst for that. So you can do advertising, all right? But the challenge with doing advertising is it costs you money every time you're running that ad, anytime anyone's clicking on it. I think it's better to do organic first and get a sense of what is attractive, what people are actually interested in, and then advertising it to scale. Yeah. So we have a catalyst of some sort. So yes, it could be ads. It could be social posts. It could be articles that you actually just put on LinkedIn or Facebook or some other place, but then invites them to a next step. So again, going back to the start, I talked about the LinkedIn newsletter. You can have a private newsletter, which is running through your own email function, but you can then also have a newsletter that is on LinkedIn. So you have a new LinkedIn newsletter, and maybe it gives value, but it leads them to a next step. And the next step is click here to sign up to our official newsletter where you can get this, this, and this. So additional value. Yeah. That's on the bottom of every single one of your articles. And it makes it easy for people to click it, move to the next step. So they've already engaged with what you've got. If they've read down to the bottom, it means they are actually engaged with what they've got, because the majority of people won't read past the fold. And for those who don't know what the fold is, it's that point in scroll when you start scrolling. where did the fold come from? Well, the fold was from the tabloid newspapers, yeah. And so they used to be folded in half, and then you would look at the front page, and that was the most valuable bit. And then if you opened up the page, the paper more, you are now reading below the fold. So newspaper land, it's literally a fold. In the digital space, it is the scroll. All right. So if they read to the bottom, they click the newsletter link, they go and subscribe to you as well. So there's multiple places, and so put it everywhere. Put your link absolutely everywhere. Obviously in a funnel. Obviously when you're asking people and connecting, qualifying, inviting them, and then having that linked on all your profiles. And I just want to make one point that a lot of people are not taking advantage of. Turning your personal profiles, whether they be on LinkedIn or Facebook, into business tools is one of the most effective things that you can do for your consulting business. A lot of people think, well, my market is not on Facebook, but the statistics actually show that they are. All right. On Facebook, they're actually humans, not in suits. On LinkedIn, they're humans in suits. They're the same humans, right? So if you can put something that's valuable for them when in their off time, it's still going to be valuable for them. Yeah. And so you can 100% connect with people on Facebook and Instagram for your consulting business. A lot of people think you can't, but you can. And in fact, it's more effective because on average, people visit, and this is a terrible statistic, but this is true. On average, a person visits their LinkedIn account once every 2 weeks. Once every 2 weeks. That's on average. So you can imagine all the people that you know that are on there every single day, which means there's people that are not on there, maybe they're once every 6 months. Which means it's very hard to have a conversation with those people. Where on Facebook, it's every 2 days, not 2 weeks, 2 days. So it's much easier to have those conversations happening faster. Yeah, and the same thing with LinkedIn. People are there on a regular basis. So, I'm not forcing you into Facebook. I'm not forcing you into LinkedIn, but I want you to know that that's another place that you can actually put the link for your newsletter. I think that making yourself available, making yourself everywhere, is a really useful thing. There was Alex Hormozy, who is a bit of a legend in the business growth space. He was talking about a friend of his coming and speaking to him about I'm doing all this content creation. It's not having the impact that I want. I think I'm doing a really good job. What we're doing is very good. I'm doing a lot of work on it, but it's not having the same sort of impact. I'm wondering, what's your secret? And so Alex asked him the question, how many times are you posting a week? And he said, 17, putting out 17 posts a week. And Alex goes, oh, okay. We're putting 3,000 out a week. And his friend went, oh, because he didn't need to be told that it's just a different level of activity, a different level of intensity. And the same thing can happen with the newsletter. If you want to build it fast, how can you intensely put it everywhere? Like my friend and colleague who was able to build the 7,000 person group, she asked everybody that she knew who was qualified, would they like access? And when a YouTube video, for instance, we're on YouTube here, is very much like a newsletter. Yeah, YouTube channel, very much like a newsletter. And so there are some early milestones with creating a YouTube video where you want to get to the first 100 people so you can actually personalize the channel. You can put a name on the channel. And to get to that 100, you can go and ask all your friends and colleagues. And when there's that milestone there is kind of more of a push or a drive to do that. And then after 100, you stop asking. But you can keep asking. You can keep asking into the thousands. And so there are all sorts of ways to do it. But the underlying essence is you ask people, right? So connect with them, qualify it is going to be relevant to them, and then invite them to access for the event. And the simplest way to do that is, would you like access to this thing about this thing? This newsletter about this topic? Yes, I would. All right, what's the best email address? I'll subscribe you. Yeah, and people will give you the email address. It happens all the time. We do the same thing with lead magnets. It's really, really good, and it changes the game for a lot of people. There are those on LinkedIn that are just posting content all day, every day, hoping and praying that someone's going to ring their phone, and it's not happening. And the simplest change in that is invite them to something. Invite them into a place where you can have a conversation. The newsletter is not the be all and end all, but it is a thing you can invite them to while you're having a conversation. So you've opened the conversation. You can now talk to these people. Yeah, they might not be ready to buy yet, and the newsletter is a really good way for them to consider whether they enjoy working with you or enjoy like your content or your ideas or your philosophies. That's a really good way to prime them. And it's also a good way to get rid of the people who wouldn't work with you because they don't like your philosophies and they don't like your ideas. That's good. That's a positive thing. You want people to unsubscribe if what you're giving is not valuable to them. But we're actually having a conversation in the process of inviting these people to the resource. Why wouldn't we continue that conversation? Why wouldn't we ask them a little bit more about their situation? Ask them some leading questions, maybe along the lines of the this or that question, the A or B question. You know, they have more than 10 staff or less than 10 staff. Revealing questions for those people who are involved in that world. And so for you and your business, what is the way you can start conversations? Because that's the more valuable question. It's great to have subscribers, but at the end of the day, you want to start conversations with these people. And if you're not starting conversations, you're not moving people into your pipeline. And if you're not moving people into your pipeline, you don't have consistent sales opportunities. Hopefully that's been valuable. Make sure you go to Russell Pearson Programs. If you haven't already, just to download the resource there, that's absolutely free. So russellpearsonprograms.com is the place where you can get that. And if you've got a question that you want to answer, want me to answer, you can go to consultingquestions.com, put in your question there, and I'll answer it live on the show. You know, 100% live. You can ask the questions there. I see Lindsay's put a couple of symbols, hasn't even quite put in the text. But we love to have these conversations, and you can ask questions in the chat. Yeah. So we're out of time now, but next week, same time, same bat time, same bat channel. Come in, ask your questions. It doesn't have to be on the topic we're talking about. I'm happy to take other questions, and I'm pretty much happy to for this to continue to run. I've made enough time in my day to allow these things to be longer if they need to. So until next time, stay passionate. My name's Russell Pearson, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye for now.